Welcome in. This is Perfect Game Retirement. Glad to have you with us. We got a special show today. Got a guest on, Ryan. I think our first guest, Bob Ginty. He is a Ramsey-Preferred financial coach. And I'm looking forward to the conversation because I think this is one that a lot of people are curious about, maybe a little concerned about, because there are warning signs everywhere. We're going to dig into those today.
Yes, first guest that we've had. So, Bob, introduce yourself to the world.
Well, I'm Bob Ginty. I'm a Ramsey-Preferred financial coach, and my job is to help people with their personal finances.
Love it. Well, we're glad you're here today with us. And Ryan, I want you to kind of set the conversation today because we're going to kind of do a two-part, I think, with Bob while we have him here, kind of talk about some of the warning signs that not only he's seeing, but you're seeing as well. You know, we're going to touch on a number of things, not just the market, not just the economy, just a lot of different warning signs that are out there that they've observed. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about debt and then kind of how you can help position yourself better in the work that Bob does at setfreefinancialcoaching.net and really get into it a little bit. So where do you want to start this, Ryan?
Yeah, we'll kind of go from my side of things when we talk about the market and the returns. I mean, these warning signs, I'm not a pessimist. I believe in the market. I believe in it long term. Obviously, there's going to be corrections. There's going to be recessions, if you will. It's just a matter of when and how deep these things are going to be. So again, this is not a glass half empty episode, but at the same time, there are some things that I'm kind of scratching my head like, okay, this is behavior that I'm seeing on my side, and then Bob's going to probably see a very different view maybe than what I'm seeing. But so the main goal of this show is to really look at the warning signs and what I'm seeing and what Bob's seeing, and then probably our next show will be kind of solutions on how we can, maybe quote unquote fix or help these issues that people may be having. So from my perspective, obviously I'm dealing with the wealth management side, the financial planning side of what people are going through. So if you just look at the snapshot of, let's just take the stock market returns for this year. The stock market returns are really good. Obviously, it depends on what index you're looking at. Everybody wants to quote the S&P 500. And let me look at my phone as of the day of this recording. Again, it's going to change whenever this is released. But, yeah, it's double digits. It's somewhere in the mid-teens, if you will. Again, depends on when you're watching this show. But so that makes it look like painting a rosy picture, like, oh, wow, the stock market's doing well, so that means everyone must be doing well. Well, the warning sign for me, and then it was good timing because Bob works with a few of our clients. Like if people need budgeting help, I send them Bob's way because that's digging into the nitty gritty of people's monthly budget. That's not necessarily what we do. We will help them out from a high level, but Bob keeps people accountable, and he's helped our clients. And you don't have to be in huge amounts of debt. Obviously, he helps people with that, but it may just be like I make way too much money. Why am I not saving or have money left over at the end of the month? And that's where he's really good at that sort of thing. So when you look at the returns, and again, the head scratching part of my job was like, okay, I started seeing people taking money out of their accounts, which is fine. That's people put money in, people take money out. That's okay. That's part of our job to help people with that. But then it became like larger amounts, and then it became more frequent. So we were even talking as an advisory group here going, yeah, so-and-so took this out for this and for that. And sometimes it's for stuff that you're like, what in the world? Why are we spending that? That was not in the plan that we have talked about, which again, it's our clients' money, but we need to be aware of these things and where it's going, and it may adjust and change their plan. So it just kept happening and kept happening and kept happening, and it is still going on where people are taking pretty frequent dollar amounts out and larger sum dollar amounts. And again, our average client is in their lower 50s, so that's like, those are the years that you need to be plowing money in. Those are your high income earning years usually. So people need to be saving, but yet we're starting to see kind of the reverse. So for me, it's puzzling. And so that's when Bob and I started to talk, and then he's kind of seeing a different viewpoint. So I'll kind of kick it over to Bob. And so again, market returns are really good, but I'm starting to see people take a good bit of money out. And kind of Bob, from your perspective, what are you seeing?
Well, some of what I'm seeing that relates to what you're talking about and people taking more money out is costs are going up. It's generically called inflation, but there are a lot of things that are going up. Grocery prices are going up, cost of electricity, cost of insurance, and they're going up for different reasons, right? The power costs and electrical costs might be a side effect of the AI build out and all the power that they need. The grocery prices might be going up because of drought in certain areas or shortages in certain areas. The tariffs are just kicking in, so we don't know what impact that's going to have. Insurance costs, you have more claims, more natural disasters, more pricey cars that people have, so that's driving those costs up. So there's a lot of factors that are kind of coming all at the same time that are causing people's budgets, when they do them, to be spending more on some of the basic expenses that everybody has to do. Everybody has to eat, everybody has to pay for their insurance, everybody has to pay the light bill, they don't want that shut off. So as their costs are rising, if they're not budgeting carefully, then they might be asking you for more money, because that hits everybody, regardless of whether you're 30 years old or 70 years old. Those costs are universally going to go up. So that's one thing. Another thing, may or may not really relate to what you were talking about, is just in terms of jobs. There's fewer jobs out there for people, and so a lot of people might just be fine. They have a job, it's great, but I have a couple of clients that lost jobs, and that's not uncommon that happens. But usually in a month or two, maybe 3, they have a new job and everything kind of straightens out. I have a couple of clients that have been out of work for more than 6 months now. One of them is in tech, and typically a tech job is, you can jump right back in there and get another job. But what he's relating to me is, because he doesn't have AI experience, he can't get hired. So, depending on what your skill sets are, changing and whatnot, people are out of work, and so they don't have the income, and their expenses are going up. That's a bad combination. And that also, kind of trickles down to the debt situation, right? If your income's going down and your expenses are going up, the difference is going to probably come out in debt in some way. And just nationally, I looked up some of the numbers. We're at 4-year highs for people being behind on their credit cards. And I see that people are coming in, and it's not only do they have a lot of debt, but I ask them, hey, when's the last time, have you been paying on it? And they'll say no, and they'll say maybe it was 4, 5, 6 months ago, the last payment I made. I have one new one that's just coming in that hasn't paid on their credit cards for 2 years. So that's kind of bad when you start seeing that. People are in default, and the credit card companies keep piling this interest on them. And it's not the old days when it was 18%, which was bad enough. They're 25, 30% interest rates that they're getting socked with every month. That's just really building that balance up and putting people in a huge hole that's hard to recover from.
So sometimes, like some people's, and this kind of goes back to, and Bob and I talked about this, the 08, 09 situation, like obviously that was a long run of the things that Bob was talking about, job loss and things like that, where people were not getting back to work, but yet you saw the market go up. So sometimes the stock market is not a direct reflection of of your personal market or your personal budget. So and that's kind of some of the signs that I'm kind of seeing as Bob and I talked about. It's like, all right, the stars are kind of aligning on this. And so again, I've heard so many like conspiracy theories. I don't know if that's the right word, but of AI. Kind of going back to your point, Bob, is maybe that sector is one of the first sectors that's seeing some of the impact of AI. But then you just start seeing I even had a conversation with a guy who's way into AI. And he says that the unemployment rates could be 50, 60, 70% because it's going to replace so much. I'm like, geez, never say never, I guess. But man, so maybe the tech bubble, if you will, is the AI is being the first one to reflect. So the market returns for AI are through the roof, but yet maybe it's impacting people the wrong way as far as unemployment goes.
Well, unemployment, and also I mentioned the electrical cost. They use an enormous amount of power from the power grid, which is going to mean if they don't start building massive amounts of power infrastructure, costs are going to continue to climb. And I just saw or listened to a podcast where they were talking about electricity costs are really going to spike this winter. And so we'll see what happens. That's somebody prognosticating. I don't know if that's true or not, but it seems to make sense to me.
Yeah, from someone that doesn't do this every day like you guys, I read all the headlines. I see a lot of these kind of indicators that you guys have kind of highlighted here today and laid out. But yet, I think you look around, it doesn't feel, you kind of feel like we're on the edge of something, but everything kind of continues on as is. So what do you think the big concern is? What is a big concern for you guys and for the work and the work that you're doing with your clients right now to kind of help position them a little bit better? What's the big, there's all these warning signs, but what should we be fearful of?
So I'll start first, and then Bob can go, because he have more to add than what I would potentially. But I mean, from the desk that I sit at, I mean, my job is to the education piece on people is to still educate people on what they have, what they don't have, how their portfolio is set, like the range of returns that we are expecting. But my job is to keep those portfolios rebalanced. So like, we just don't want to keep riding the wave and go, oh gosh, why would we rebalance? This thing is doing so well. Why would we put stuff in conservative investments while everything is going so well? But that's my job, is to keep their risk perspective and their portfolio in check, if you will. So you don't want to be, too greedy. You sometimes want to do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. Obviously, other people have kind of quoted that in the past, especially Warren Buffett, saying do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. So I'm not saying completely do that, but that's my job. That's what the big concerns and the education that I'm trying to provide people. Like, well, why would I do that? Well, here's why. Because if we have a pullback and your portfolio is way different than it was before, well, the pullback is really going to affect you a whole lot more if and when there is going to be one. So that's kind of my big concerns, but I think Bob sees another viewpoint on that, and maybe even a bigger picture kind of warning that he sees.
Yeah, I mean, down at the ground level, we're talking about the same concept, which is risk, right? You want to lower your risk. The other Warren Buffett quote is, when the tide goes out, you see who's been swimming naked, right? Mm-hmm. And so you got to get rid of your risk. And in the personal finance area, the risk is if you got debts, well, you might be paying them now, but if you get a job loss or your expenses rise and you get squeezed, it's harder to pay those debts, right? So you're in a position where you might be swimming naked, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't have any cash reserves to get you by a tough time, you're going to be you've got too much risk of anything going wrong. So I think what I really focus on with people is trying to put them in a position where they start to reduce and eliminate as much risk as they can, so that they don't end up in a situation where they get caught out and the tide rolls out on them, right? So that's the big thing I focus on.
Yeah, great information. And I know, you can always get in touch with Ryan. We talk about it all the time here on the show. There's contact info in the show notes to get in touch. You can go to speakwithryan.com to set up time to talk with him and really get to know how Black Oak Asset Management can help you right now. But also, if you want to get in touch with Bob, we're going to drop his contact info in the show notes as well. But it's setfreefinancialcoaching.net. And Bob, you can kind of walk through, for anyone that sets up that time. I know, Ryan, you work with Bob a lot hand in hand with some people that maybe you don't work with, you sent his way, but kind of how are you helping people? What can they expect, Bob, if they want to reach out and try to help position themselves better, just in case, things kind of turn out negatively here in the next couple months or year?
Well, I really try to help people focus on, looking first of all at their budget, make sure that they're not, wasting money, and they're putting their money toward their priorities, the things that are important, rather than having money leak out to things that are less important. And if they have debt, I want to help them come up with a debt plan to focus on repaying that debt and getting rid of that risk that we talked about, so that they get to the years where Ryan's talking about, when they're in their 60s and 70s and retire and have lots of money to do what they want to. And Ryan's helped me a lot. I'm semi-retired, moved down to Florida, enjoying life. I want other people to be able to do that as well. So that's what I focus on. So you can, if you log on to my website, at setfreefinancialcoaching.net, you can set up a consultation, and hey, we'll just talk about it, see what's going on with you, and see if I can help you, see if it makes sense for us to work together.
Very good. Well, we're going to talk more about what you do, Bob, on our next video, and really kind of talk about some of these solutions and really some things you can be doing to protect yourself, talk about the risk, talk about the debt a little bit more, and kind of dig into that side of it. But we wanted to kind of highlight some of these warning signs and let you kind of hear firsthand what these guys are seeing every day with the people they're working with, and why maybe you should be doing a little bit more right now. Take some action now to be proactive rather than reactive. So again, get in touch. Everything's in the show notes down below the show description. And please subscribe to the video as well so you'll know when the next one's coming. Bob, thanks for your time. Appreciate you being a part of the show today. And of course, Ryan, as always, appreciate you.
Yep.
Thanks, Ben.